When Steam's Early Access feature was announced, I immediately jumped on board and grabbed several of the games in the list, including one I'd never heard of before called Gnomoria. It's apparently been around for quite a while though, and it's one of those games I wish I had known about earlier so that I could have played it last year instead of starting last week. In my first week of play though, I've racked up over 25 hours of playtime, which says a lot about the game. But before I start gushing about why I like it so much, let's discuss what it is. If you've ever played Dwarf Fortress, it's like that, only you can actually view the screen without wanting to rip your eyeballs from their sockets. If you haven't played Dwarf Fortress, think of Gnomoria like a cross between an RPG, an RTS, and Minecraft. There are elements of strategy, heavy pre-planning, and the same block-based atmosphere of Minecraft that pulls everything else together. At the start of the game, you're given a handful of gnomes and given free reign over what you want to do. The goal is to survive, thrive, and build up an empire of your own, but it's certainly not easy, both for gameplay and control reasons. There's no tutorial, and the pixelated screen and controls makes things as basic as digging and building structures hard to figure out. After a few hours of fiddling with that, you then have to figure out how to play the game without dying of hunger, thirst, or goblin attacks. Give yourself another few hours of repeatedly trying new maps though, and if you're like me, all of a sudden the game will click. Menus that you didn't understand at the start will become crystal clear, and you'll start assigning professions to your gnomes like a pro, and you'll be able to harvest more than enough resources to plan for the harsh winter seasons. Going back to the comparison to Minecraft, in Gnomoria you'll find that there's an even deeper construction, farming, and combat system. In fact, almost everything you see in Minecraft is here in Gnomoria, except it's incredibly detailed and requires you to micromanage your gnomes obsessively if you don't want to die. Building workshops is a great example. Instead of being able to build your contraptions at a single workshop, like in Minecraft, multiple workshops are required to construct more than basic planks or blocks of stone. Each workshop acts as one part of the assembly line, and if your gnomes aren't tasked to the right professions, you can end up with a huge roadblock that could very well cost you the game. Instead of breeding gnomes, which I sort of expected, given how you breed yaks, emus, and alpacas, the start of each season brings more gnomes to your kingdom based on the overall kingdom worth, which is calculated from a few different sources. The higher your kingdom's worth, the more gnomes you'll attract to join your workforce, and the more merchants you'll draw in, from whom you can buy lucrative and impossible to find anywhere else wares. The downside of this, though, is that a wealthier kingdom draws in more enemies, and if you aren't prepared for them, they'll overwhelm and destroy your gnomes in just a few attacks. So far, my strategy has been just to wall myself in so that I can be protected against attacks, since I'm still trying to find the right balance between farming, crafting, and preparing for war. This turtling technique is something I've done in most RTS games throughout my life, and it actually works very well in Gnomoria, provided that you've given yourself adequate space for growing food for your workers. Most aggressive strategies will lead to greater rewards, but you'll also risk losing your valuable gnomes. A single loss when you only have a dozen or so workers can be devastating, especially if you've spent a long time fine-tuning their professions so that they all work together in a single, well-oiled machine. At its core, Gnomoria is an excessively deep sim-like game that draws you in and doesn't let go. Ever since the game clicked for me, I found myself repeatedly glancing at my watch at 4 a.m., wondering where my evenings went. The price of Gnomoria is under $10 last I checked, and is easily worth 5 times that, if not way more. If you get it and get frustrated at the start, don't give up. Switch to a peaceful mode map, don't be afraid to click on all the buttons you see, and pretty soon you'll have the mechanics down. I'm Mike, this is Game Night with Mike, and I hope you enjoyed this review of Gnomoria. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more reviews, playthroughs, and guides. Have a great night.